Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, Matt Gaetz' former BFF, Joel Greenberg, was finally sentenced on Friday for a litany of crimes that he committed. And through his cooperation, he may have outed Ron DeSantis. So, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But let me give you some of the details of what went down. The judge sentenced Greenberg to 11 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation. The prison sentence was the top end of the range requested by the prosecutor. And the judge both praised him and slammed Greenberg at the same time. This is at the sentencing hearing. The judge said, quote, "He has provided substantial cooperation to the government, more than I've seen in 22 years. But then he added, quote, "In 22 years, I've never experienced a case like this. I have never seen a defendant who has committed so many different types of crimes in such a short period." It also came out in court that Greenberg was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so that explains some of this. The judge also excoriated the Justice Department for moving so slowly in prosecuting others who Greenberg implicated. District Judge Gregory Presnell is overseeing this case, or was, and he said, quote, "The government has had a lot of time to conclude those investigations. Why they haven't, I don't know. I'm not privy to that. I'm not entitled to that." And then the judge called it concerning that there are, quote, "extensive investigations ongoing with no end in sight." But what's really making the headlines are new comments and condemnation from Greenberg's attorney. As I recently shared with you guys, he went off on the Justice Department in his sentencing memo to the court. And now he's making the rounds on cable news, and he's sharing more details about all of these alleged crimes and criminals that Greenberg outed. There was an interview he gave on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace, and this attorney is Fritz Scheller, in case you haven't seen him. He sounded really exasperated, very disgusted by the fact that his client has provided hours and hours of testimony, tons of evidence, written evidence, only to have the big fish walk. At least that's the way it seems as of now. Scheller referred to Greenberg as the, quote, "tip of the spear." And he said that based on the information Greenberg provided, he's now seen a, quote, "more insidious backdrop to Mr. Greenberg." Scheller also said that news reports that came out recently are incorrect. He specifically cited a recent Washington Post article, which I shared some of it with you guys when it first came out. The article stated that the only two witnesses to Gaetz' alleged encounters with the then 17-year-old girl were Greenberg and the victim herself. And it said because they both have credibility issues, the government doesn't want to use them. Well, according to Scheller, that is absolutely not the case. Scheller says that there are multiple additional firsthand witnesses. There's also flight records, he says, Uber receipts, Venmo receipts, hotel records. He says all of this stuff corroborates Greenberg's testimony about Gaetz. He also said that Greenberg provided evidence of election interference, election fraud, and public corruption, some of which Gaetz is involved in. According to him, some does not involve him, but it involves other high-profile figures. So in regard to the election fraud and interference, Scheller indicated that Gaetz was somehow involved, and he said that it affected Seminole, Tallahassee, and Broward counties in Florida, but he didn't elaborate. So I went back, I found an article that I remembered reading, but I kind of dismissed it at the time as, oh, it's coincidence, it's kind of nothing. This was an article that was published at the beginning of November by the New York Times, and it noted that Proud Boys members and Roger Stone, as well as Matt Gaetz, were all seen protesting the 2018 Florida elections. They were chanting, "Stop the Steal." And this was the race in which Ron DeSantis barely won his first election for Florida governor. It was also the race where Republican Rick Scott barely eked out his Senate win. So the gist of the article was that the DOJ is investigating this 2018 protest to see if it was like a test run for what happened at the Capitol. The reason being is that many of the same players were involved in both of these protests. Obviously, they were using the same bogus conspiracies to get people all whipped into a frenzy. They lied to Republican voters and they told them the very standard recounts that were being done in those races in 2018 were a Democratic effort to steal the election. So the author of that New York Times article reached out to Greenberg's attorney when this article was written. They asked for comment, and he declined to provide any details about what he or Greenberg knows, specifically about 2018. But he did say, quote, "A significant aspect of Mr. Greenberg's cooperation has been his assistance in matters involving efforts to subvert the democratic process." Now, taken on its own, protesting, using the same election fraud lies and slogan, it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Or maybe not a criminal offense, at least. But if you consider also the recent statements made by Donald Trump, in which he admitted to getting involved in that election, the 2018 election, and stopping the vote count for Ron DeSantis, it seems a whole lot different. Because remember, in mid-November this year, Trump had a meltdown. He had a tantrum. He posted on his failing social media site, and he wrote, quote, "I was all in for Ron, and he beat Gillum. But after the race, when voters were being stolen by the corrupt election process in Broward County, and Ron was going down 10,000 votes a day, along with now Senator Rick Scott, I sent in the FBI and the U.S. attorneys, and the ballot theft immediately ended, just prior to them running out of votes necessary to win. I stopped his election from being stolen." Now, of course, there was no corruption. There were no votes being stolen. He's full of crap. But that is besides the point. This Trump statement is much more concerning now that we have Greenberg's attorney out here waving his arms, jumping up and down, and talking about subversion of the democratic process and how the DOJ is, quote, "fiddling while Rome burns." That's literally what he said he feels like is going down. So I really hope that the DOJ is already on this. I hope that they're just keeping this on the down low and we're all going to be shocked when we see that they've indicted people, because it looks a whole lot different when you consider the full context, you step back and look at the full picture of what Greenberg has allegedly told them, what his attorney is freaking out about and trying to warn people about, and what Trump recently said. Anyway, guys, wanted to share that with you. I will keep you posted, definitely. Please like, share, subscribe. Please donate if you can, monthly or one time. Really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.